Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm a social studies educator, historian, and host of this, the Everything is a Primary Source podcast. I'm also an avid collector of popular culture artifacts. I love what I find at thrift store outlets, garage sale leftovers, and what I spot just making my way around the built world. I enjoy sorting through boxes of free books and magazines, not to mention online collections like Internet Archive, and of course the Library of Congress. But you don't need to spend your time digging through bins or following online rabbit holes to get a look into the past. The movies and TV we watch, the books we read, and the games we play are all documents of the past. So is fashion, food, music, toys, even the roads we travel on and the places we live and work in. Everything is a primary source. This podcast is the result of exhibiting these kinds of artifacts in public, getting passersby to select an item they connect with, and then chatting with me to see what it says about the time, place, and people who made it. The conversation you are about to hear, therefore, is your history, my history, our history, through popular culture.
We were talking the exact same language as each other, as far as just that things like video games and movies and TV shows are toys, all those things are documents of the past, just the same way as letters and diaries and everything else that is usually considered to be documents of the past. And I was admiring your t-shirt, your Atari t-shirt, and your Flynn arcade jacket that you have. You say you do some cosplaying and some movies and things like that?
Yeah, so I'm an actor and a writer and a cosplayer. I live in Vermont, and I've been doing the acting thing for 35 years. In fact, tomorrow I got to go down to North Reading, Mass, and redo some ADR for some lines that didn't quite get picked up the right way by the microphone. So, yeah.
You are part of the process of making these same documents, is what you're saying, not just a collector of them, an appreciator of them.
Yeah, I make my own history, but again, I was born in 65, raised in the 70s and 80s when Starlog magazine was the thing to have, or Mad magazine, or trading cards, Incredible Hulk trading cards, Jaws 2 trading cards, Star Wars trading cards, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have all this streaming stuff, so we used our imaginations and got our, source from magazines and comic books and trading cards and stuff.
So basically the society and the culture that's being celebrated today at Free Comic Book Day, and you said you're on your way up to Fun Spot in Laconia for the arcade there, basically was born in that time period.
It was, and there's nothing like it. Like, you watch any 70s, 80s TV show, movie, song, they're still just as popular today. The A-Team was 80s, but, you got The Love Boat, you got Magnum P.I., Simon and Simon. You can go far back with, like, the Brady Bunch and Partridge Family, the Waltons, Little House on the Prairie, Family Affair, Car 54, Where Are You?, Dragnet, The Amazing Spider-Man, Incredible Hulk. Just all these shows of the day are what made us who we are today, and people are trying to duplicate that, but they're doing it with CGI, and they're doing it with not as great scripts or ideas or passion.
Right. I think that's what the big difference between, either whether they be reboots or remakes or sequels, all the modern versions of those same stories just don't have the same feel to them because there's not as much authenticity in it. It's not, in many cases. So what we're going to talk about right now is Tron.
Yes.
The film Tron. And I had the question is, how was it made? And you just said that you came across this amazing trove of Tron-related material, right?
Original storyboards, original Polaroids, original, everything. I have a 3 to 4 minute, I don't know how long it is, but I think it's a 3 or 4 minute test footage, 35 millimeter reel that they use to figure out how to do the special effects correctly and stuff. I have since become friends with one of those people. I've been friends with him for about 12 or 14 years. His name is Jerry Rees. He's also famous for doing that animated movie, The Brave Little Toaster.
Oh, I love that. Heartbreaking.
Yeah, so we'll get back to Tron. He came into The Brave Little Toaster and really just took everything they had and had to reimagine the whole thing and make it what it is today. Anyways, I went to the Tron 30th anniversary out in LA at the Grauman's Chinese Theater in 2012 in October, and Tron, a lot of people are like, oh, those effects are so bad, but they were the first effects. If without those effects, you wouldn't have Jurassic Park, you wouldn't have 14 those what are those movies called with the car racing?
Fast and Furious.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have 12 Fast and the Furious movies. Like, without Tron in 1982, and what's funny is the light cycles and the recognizers and all that stuff was done on a computer the size of your refrigerator, and they couldn't send it anywhere. They could just save it, and they couldn't rewatch it. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, your phone has more computing power to do stuff than the computers that they use on Tron. Some of it was done old school way, like when you see, Tron or Stark or whatever, and they're glowing blue and red. Somebody hand painted every single one of those frames. They blew them up into a huge codolith. They shipped them off to Taiwan, and people hand painted blue and red lines on these uniforms and made them pulsate. So it really was partly groundbreaking and partly old school. And it just, I don't know, it's my second favorite movie of all time. And I just, after that movie was made, they never made a movie that way again.
And I think you put it so well that they had, because they had to, given the time period that they're making it, they had to use practical things to make this futuristic, computer-based, like you're inside of a game kind of feel to it, where, again, like you said, you could do that with ease. Like, anybody could do that now on a phone. You don't even need, but it says something about the era. So the people that are making that are the same people who, starting in the 60s, are starting to get kind of new ideas of what the future might hold, and by the time you get to the 80s, they can actually generate that into a motion picture and say, this is... I remember being kind of frightened by Tron when I was a kid, when I saw it, because it just seemed so... I don't know, I guess exactly what it was. It looked wild science fiction-y, but it also had a human touch to it, a human emotion to it, that it seemed kind of like it could happen, and it would be a bit terrifying to be stuck inside of technology like that.
Yeah, like when Flynn gets zapped and gets digitized into the computer, and now he's in there. Yeah. It's just, back in the day, because it's the past, history through pop culture, things like the show The Incredible Hulk and things like the miniseries V. Kenny Johnson always added human elements of, compassion and stuff into his stories, so that it wasn't just entertaining. There was always a message. There was always, like Dr. David Banner, a guy who, is down on his luck and he's running away from something because he didn't really do anything, and sort of like Planet of the Apes TV series. They were on the run because, whatever. But I think that's what's missing today is good, compassionate stories. It's what can we do with CGI to wow the audience?
Yeah.
And you don't have a story, you don't have compassion, you don't have a good script, and you don't, sometimes you don't even have good actors. But the stuff from the past, whether it's, like we say, music or television or movies, just had that element that's, I think, missing today.
Why do you think we lost all of that? Is it just because of the generation of filmmakers that we have don't have that connection to a time before instant, for example, I remember when the Star Wars sequels were coming out and J.J. Abrams was making that, reading about them, he's sitting around a computer with their lead special effects person, and he's like, let's put another X-Wing fighter over there. Let's make one, we need another TIE fighter. Just like something that would make a model maker back in 1977, 80, making the Star Wars movies then, it would take them the better part of a week to insert the different ships because there were actual physical things that they had to work with. He was just like, yeah, let's do that. And it shows itself
right
in that movie because the battle sequences look just like a really polished cartoon. It doesn't look like a real physical thing. And so similarly with Tron, it has that genuineness that it looks like you could reach out and touch it because you could.
Right.
Even though it's set in a computer, even though it's doing the exact thing that we're saying is kind of ruining, because these filmmakers, they live in a computer world. They've only known that.
Right.
As far as their filmmaking goes.
And so CGI is a double-edged sword because we can do so much with it now that we couldn't do before. And I would say we owe it to Tron, The Last Starfighter, because that was kind of the next one that really pushed the envelope with CGI. But I think CGI needs to help or enhance the story, but there needs to be a story. And I just got done watching the Fallout series, and you can't tell what is CGI and what is set building. And that's when CGI works, is when somebody's walking down a road and there's buildings everywhere that are destroyed and cars and rubble everywhere, and none of that stuff is really there. That's when CGI for me worked. But when, like you say, Fast and Furious, a guy rolls a car 415 times, gets out, jumps on a motorcycle to chase the guy, I'm like, that guy would be dead.
Yeah.
And people say to me, well, it's a movie. Okay, but a movie still needs to be believable. Like, if you can't roll a car 180 times in real life and walk away, you shouldn't be able to roll a car 180 times in a movie. It just shouldn't happen. So CGI is good when it's used properly to enhance, like in Mandalorian or Fallout or any of those shows that use it because destroying an entire city to film their movie is not an option.
I remember feeling that way when watching The Mandalorian, the first season anyway, of having, like, yes, they have a great success here because they have one foot planted firmly in the past, the things that made Star Wars great stories, and practical, physical things that they're using to make the world real, and then one's foot set in the future, or at least the modern time of like, okay, let's use the right dosage of this computer technology to enhance what we're already working with. When you watch those the prequel series from the early 2000s, it's almost 100% green screen. Everything's, and it just kind of, it doesn't have that heart to it that the movies of the late 70s and early 80s did, because there was so much practicality involved.
Two of the greatest storytellers and two of the greatest creators of shows of all time, in my opinion, were Gene Roddenberry, who created Star Trek and had a vision of everybody, no matter where you're from, country-wise or whatever, all working together on a ship. And they were great stories that the people who were writing for Star Trek. And the other one was The Twilight Zone, Rod Serling.
Yeah.
So we've lost storytelling, I think, in my opinion. So I would say 1 out of 10 shows that I watch or 1 out of 10 movies I see, I'm like, this was a good movie, this was a good show. The other 9, they're just trying to make money, and they're not telling a story, really. And I think that's what we lost.
Yeah, and that's another element of how it's made. If you show me the storyboard, a storyboard relies on a good story.
Right.
Otherwise, there's no translation into what essentially looks like a comic book that you can move around the parts of it, the frames of it. You're missing that if you're just going straight for, all right, we want the shock factor, we want the awe factor, that you have in that era of the late 70s, early 80s, people who were growing up watching The Twilight Zone and watching Star Trek and having their imaginations unlocked and saying, I want to be able to make stories of my own. But there's a process. It's not as quick as just going from okay, let's make a story set in space to then making a story set in space.
Right,
it's like,
right.
I think the mark of a good story is something that could be told in several different ways. It could be told as a comedy. It could be told that, I think about My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah.
That movie is hilarious, but the same exact story could be told as a drama.
Right.
A crime drama. But because it's done the right way and there is so much heart behind it and so much care taken with it, it comes out as just a fantastic comedy movie. And so, same kind of thing with like Tron, you could go the animated route.
Right, which they did for a couple seasons or whatever, yeah. I'm currently involved in an independent project out of New York. It's called Halloween Night with a K. You can find it on Facebook. It's Batman versus Michael Myers, and I play Commissioner Gordon, and I double for the Shape from time to time. And the guy who's doing its name is Nick Kranick, and he storyboards every scene before we do it. So he comes in, he's like, I need a shot of Michael Myers in this rear mirror. I need a shot of James Gordon close up and blah, blah, blah. And so when we go to film, he knows exactly what he needs for a shot. We don't have to sit there and guess. He's storyboarded the whole thing, and it's really amazing to see, like we had said a little while ago, that I got these storyboards from Tron, original storyboards, and it's cool to look at those and then look at Tron and go, wow, these storyboards are almost like what they did is almost exactly like these storyboards.
So going back to fundamentals, basically,
yeah,
it's what it comes down to, and it's heartening to say. I think I'll end by this because I want to get you back to Comic Book Day, but for a number of reasons, I feel like the film industry, Hollywood in general, has maybe overextended its welcome. That it's about time that the people, whether it be independent filmmakers or just people with their phones, make their own media and not have to rely on it. And if it means that we go back to the fundamentals of storyboarding things out, planning things out, having to work with a lower budget and making the adjustments because of it, then that might be what we end up with in the future. So do you see it going in the same direction? It's
funny because when, like, I work on a lot of independent films. You can find me on the Internet Movie Database, R.W. Martin. But I work on mostly independent films with either zero or little budget, and you're forced to be creative. And when you're forced to be creative, I think you turn out a much better project because you had to figure out how are we going to do this. So yeah, I think they need to come back to, make it a little more simple. I think they've lost their way, and like they just announced another remake of the movie Overboard that originally starred Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn. They did one a few years ago, and now they're doing another one with Goldie Hawn's daughter. And I'm like, why do we have to keep remaking a movie that there was nothing wrong with the first time around?
And especially with these, it's like the next generation of Hollywood elite.
Yeah, it's like, get your own movie.
I think there's, and to a lesser extent, what we're doing right now is part of that too. Podcasting is so democratic. Anybody can do it.
Right.
Anybody can just, and that's what we need more of in film is more democracy. People saying, I have an idea, I want to see it through, and film is the best way to do it. And it's wonderful having resources to be able to put that out there now. Where so like if somebody was making Tron now, they could do it, and it would be, the easiest way to put it up there. But So people can find you online.
Yeah, officialrwmartin.com is my website, and then if you just go to IMDb and type in R.W.Martin, I'm R.W. Martin parentheses 2. The first R.W. Martin on Internet Movie Database was a chopper pilot for Lethal Weapon or something, and that's not me. So,
Could be.
but yeah,
That'd be cool. Thank you for stopping by, and I'll
I'm
let you get
glad
back
that
to
I
Free
did.
Comic Book Day. Awesome.
Popular culture, by definition, connects and unites us, and proves that people of different backgrounds, in fact, have a lot in common with one another. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, at least in part, for that reason. If it connects with you and you'd like to add to it, or any of the podcast episodes, just visit everything-history.com and search for the Everything is a Primary Source project, which can be found in the classroom section of the website. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Be sure to rate and share this podcast wherever you are listening to it now, and follow Everything as a Primary Source on social media, including YouTube and especially Instagram. Thank you for listening to the EPS podcast, where everything is a primary source.